The period between 1956 and 1966 marked a significant era in Africa's history as the majority of African states achieved independence from colonial rule. The air was filled with euphoria, a sense of expectation, and a fervent desire for self-determination. Kenya, nestled in the heart of East Africa, was no exception to this wave of change. However, its journey to independence was fraught with complexities and challenges that set it apart from its counterparts. At the dawn of colonial rule, Kenya's landscape was transformed by European settlers who established themselves as the ruling class, dominating the country's economic and social spheres. The colonial economy revolved around cash crop exports, with large settler communities controlling vast tracts of fertile land. These settlers, primarily of British descent, wielded significant influence and power, shaping the political and economic landscape of the territory. Yet, beneath the veneer of colonial prosperity lay simmering discontent among Kenya's indigenous population. The injustices of land dispossession, forced labor, and political marginalization fueled a groundswell of resistance. This resistance found its voice in the Mau Mau Rebellion, a violent insurgency against British colonial rule. The Land and Freedom Army uprising of central Kenya was the most violent of the nationalist campaigns fought directly against the British, and it both delayed and distorted the path to independence. It was anti-settler, but also aimed against those Kikuyu chiefs who exercised power under British tutelage. One notable example was in 1954, a key battle between Mau Mau insurgents and British colonial forces. The Mau Mau fighters, led by Field Marshal Dedan Kimathi, ambushed a British military convoy near Londian, resulting in heavy casualties on both sides. As the flames of rebellion engulfed the countryside, one figure emerged as a central figure in Kenya's struggle for independence: Jomo Kenyatta. A charismatic leader and staunch nationalist, Kenyatta played a pivotal role in galvanizing support for the Mau Mau cause. However, his association with the rebellion would later come at a cost. Jomo Kenyatta was accused of being the mastermind behind the rebellion and was imprisoned. He was only released after the rebellion had been brutally crushed through the use of a counterinsurgency campaign, mass detentions of Kikuyu suspected of involvement, extrajudicial killings, and beatings. When Kenyatta was released, he re-entered the political scene and led Kenya to independence on the 12th of December 1963, first as Prime Minister, then President when a republic was declared a year later. He took a conservative approach with pro-capitalist economics and called on white settlers to remain. As a result of the alienation of land from the Kalenjin, Maasai, and Kikuyu in order to provide good quality land for European settlers, land rights and redistribution were major issues in Kenya. With World Bank funding, Kenyatta launched a land acquisition program, supposedly to allow the resettlement of landless peasants on formerly European land, but it by no means resolved the issue. Many communities, particularly the Kalenjin in the Rift Valley, felt that land taken from them under colonialism was being distributed to Kenyatta's political cronies. To this day, land is one of the most explosive issues in Kenyan politics. After the death of Kenya's first president Jomo Kenyatta in 1978, Daniel Arap Moi succeeded to the presidency and had taken over Kenyatta's network of patronage and political clients, though without depriving the Kenyatta family of the fortune they had amassed since independence. Moi became head of the ruling party, KANU, and over the following years he built his own networks based on the Kalenjin communities of the Rift Valley, the Maasai, and other smaller ethnic communities, gradually pushing out the Kikuyu grandees like Charles Nyonjo, who had been a mainstay of Kenyatta's period in power. Other leading Kikuyu politicians were bought off. The Luo of Oginga Odinga, and later his son Raila, remained marginalized. Moi used his client network and the coercive powers of the state to retain power and to ensure that when he began to move towards plural politics, under heavy domestic pressure and external threats to withhold aid, he did so in a way that enabled him to keep tight hold of power and wealth accumulation while building ever stronger patronage networks in the Rift Valley. This led to movement for political liberalization, led by a mixture of former ministers and KANU leaders who had fallen from favor under Moi, alongside civil society groups from the legal profession, human rights activists, and sections of the church. Moi tried to deny them the chance to propagate their views with arrests, harassment, and a ban on meetings, and by trying to prevent the broadcasting of their views, but the sheer breadth of opposition, supplemented by Western pressure, forced Moi to agree to the legalization of political parties and the holding of elections in 1992. He moved fast to hold the elections before the fragmented opposition had time to organize. But Moi had been less inclusive than Kenyatta, and many communities felt excluded, providing a focus for opposition. As Moi liberalized Kenyan politics, he began a very clear strategy of informalizing political power and coercive force, a means both of retaining a power base in the Rift Valley and protecting the wealth of his client network should he lose power nationally. This informalization was characterized by the looting of the Kenyan state and by transforming some of Kenya's gangs into ethnic militias. The result was a groundswell of overtly ethnic politics encouraged by ambitious elites for whom community grievances over land, development, or access to education could be politically exploited through emotive appeals to fear and ethnicity. These ethnic rivalries were developed and manipulated by political leaders. They were not, as the media often presents them, primordial, primitive ethnic or tribal antagonisms. There was no concerted or consistent history of hatred or violence between different groups in Kenya. Divisions were caused by poverty, marginalization, and the frustration of those outside the patron-client networks rather than by abiding ethnic enmity. It came as a major shock when the December 2007 elections were followed by widespread violence, with politicians inciting hatred in areas such as the Rift Valley and the slums of Nairobi. The aftermath of the 2007 elections left Kenya scarred and fractured. Ethnic rivalries, long-suppressed grievances, and political machinations converged to unleash violence on an unprecedented scale. Communities turned against each other, fueled by hatred and mistrust. This triggered when the incumbent president, Mwai Kibaki, had himself sworn in as president again after allegedly fraudulent vote count. The conflict that followed displaced hundreds of thousands of people in the Rift Valley and led to at least 1,200 deaths. It started with angry political demonstrations over the election result, but soon developed an ethnic edge as Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, leaders in the Rift Valley, used grievances over land and wealth to incite the Kalenjin-speaking peoples against the Kikuyu living there. The President's Party of National Unity, PNU, struck back, with members of the Mungiki sect used as the ruling party's private army. Kenya's political parties are formed around personalities who exploit patronage networks based on their own linguistic, ethnic, and regional origins. Today, as Kenya grapples with the legacies of its past, the echoes of history continue to reverberate through its present. Amidst the challenges and uncertainties, there remains hope. Hope for a Kenya united in diversity, where justice, equality, and reconciliation prevail, and a beacon of hope and resilience in the heart of Africa. Despite the challenges of its past, the nation has embarked on a remarkable journey of transformation and growth. Today, Kenya's economy is flourishing, driven by innovation, entrepreneurship, and investment. Its cities pulse with energy and vitality, symbolizing the dynamism of a nation on the rise. But perhaps most inspiring of all is the spirit of unity and reconciliation that defines modern Kenya. Across the country, people from diverse backgrounds come together, embracing their differences and celebrating their shared humanity. From the bustling streets of Nairobi to the tranquil shores of Lake Victoria, Kenya is a testament to the power of resilience, forgiveness, and hope. It is a nation that has overcome adversity and emerged stronger and more united than ever before. As Kenya looks towards the future, it does so with optimism and determination. For in the journey from independence to prosperity lies a story of triumph over adversity, of resilience in the face of challenges, and of hope for a brighter tomorrow.